Scott Erlen here with head men's basketball, Josh Schertz. And this is part one of our 5-part segment previewing the 2014-15 season. And for segment one, we're talking about the schedule. So looking at the schedule, Coach, you start off at home for SAC Conference Carolinas Challenge. We get Lees-McRae and then King. Just talk about that kind of that 2-game opening weekend.
Well, I think opening weekend is always kind of a dangerous time. We opened up a couple years back in a similar tournament where we had Erskine and King a couple of years ago, and we actually wound up beating Erskine in overtime and beat King in a really tough game. And I think Erskine lost both games in overtime, and Carson Newman was in that tournament. They lost to King in a really tough game and beat Erskine in OT. So, my point being is opening weekend, crazy stuff happens, because it's the first time you played. It's hard to have a great scouting report. You don't have as good a feel. We'll have a little bit better feel with King just because we played so often here over the last 5 or 6 years. Lees-McRae has been a couple years since we played. They have a new coach, and Steve Harden has done a great job of rebuilding that program. And while their record wasn't, great last year, they got off to a terrific start last year. They beat Lenoir-Rhyne, beat Catawba, beat Brevard early in the season, and they've got some really good guys back and have signed an outstanding recruiting class. So we'll be tested right away. We'll be thrown in the fire right away there on November 14th and 15th. No way for us to you like sometimes to play your way into the season. You won't have the chance. We won't have the chance to do that this year.
And then the strange part of the schedule now with 22 South Atlantic Conference games is right after that we got a 3-game stretch of conference play. Host Mars Hill for the first game, but then after that on the road to play Queens and Anderson. Those are two of the probably top upper half of the conference play. We haven't seen the poll yet, but we'd imagine that is. Just kind of how important is that early stretch of conference play?
Well, it's huge. The way conference play works and the way the NCAA tournament works, it's your body of work, right? So, a game on November 20th counts the same as a game on March 1st. There's no differential. So, for us, we got to be ready to play out of the gates. You're talking about, some potential NCAA tournament teams in that stretch. Some teams that certainly will be among the top 8 to 10 teams in the region. I think you could certainly make a case that Queens is probably from a talent standpoint, the most talented team in our league, and then they're also extremely well coached. When you look at Anderson and what Jason's been able to do there, it's remarkable every year. They're always picked. They lose guys are picked 4th or 5th, and they're always either winning or certainly in contention to win the conference every single year. So go on the road back to back. You got those 5 games before Thanksgiving, and you can play your way into some stuff or play your way out of some stuff before you eat turkey. So we're going to have to be very good and hopefully give us a sense of urgency about our preseason preparation as we get into those games, because obviously, like I said, it's your body of work. We're going to have to be good right from the start.
And then after our game against Anderson, which we know is going to be a battle, we get 5 straight games at home, and 3 of them are non-conference games, which that's pretty much all we've got left before the calendar flips to 2015. What will that stretch mean for your team, and kind of what were you going to be looking to do then?
Well, I think, over the course of the season, you want to try to play games, and you want to play some games where you feel like you get a chance to play at home, and you can maybe play through some mistakes and kind of get a grasp on to play great to win. I think look at the first 5 games, you're going to have to play at a really high level to have a chance to win any of those 5 games. Not saying the rest of those aren't, because I think you start a stretch with Tennessee Wesleyan, with Mike Poe. They've had a great NAIA program. It's been a rivalry long before we're kind of bringing that back, and Mike was good enough to come down here and play. Off the top of my head, I think the next is Ohio Midwestern. We've played them before. Ricardo's given us some tough games. They got a pretty good program. We've played them 2 or 3 times and been in some battles with them. You then flip back to conference, which is different. You got Coker, and obviously a lot of respect for those guys. They're a terrific team, and they'll be picked in the top, half of the league, I would assume. Virginia Lynchburg, who I haven't seen, and then Newberry comes in, and I think when you're looking, we talked about Queens and Anderson. I think Newberry is probably the team that will be picked to win the league. To me, they have the least amount of question marks. They return really all 5 starters and almost their entire team from a team that was 19-9 and the 9th place team in the region last year. They're the last team to not make the NCAA field. So that's going to be an unbelievably difficult and important game. And then we have that rivalry game with Virginia Wise to close out the 2014 calendar part of our schedule. So be more non-conference games in that area. But still, you got a home game with Coker, a home game with Newberry, which are huge conference games, and every game you're playing for positioning there from a regional standpoint to try to create a resume and a body of work where when you get to March, you don't have to rely on winning the conference tournament to make the NCAA tournament.
And then after that UVA-Wise game, you get what, in my mind, just glancing over the schedule, is one of the most important stretches of the season. You go to Lenoir-Rhyne. We've had some wars there. It's a really tough place to play. Heat, crowds right on top of you. Then you come back home and you finish that series with Anderson. And we know how tough that series has been with Anderson at home the last few years. Then after that, 3 days later, we head to Wingate.
Yeah.
Tough stretch right there.
Yeah, you're coming off Christmas break, and at that point, the thing with our league is, and I really think this is true, it's kind of like, the coaching is so good, and every team's got such good players, that every stretch you could look at and say how difficult it's going to be and how unbelievably challenging. And I think you look at that stretch, you're going to Lenoir-Rhyne, like you talked about, they haven't lost maybe 4 or 5 home games the last 3 years. John Lentz is winningest coach in the history of the league, one of the great coaches in the country. Is I think 500 wins, and it's just not only is the dean of the SAC, but he's a guy that's runs a first-class program. You then come back, and like you said, the Anderson series, the way the calendar works with the conference, just like last year, that's done right away. Anderson's, so that's going to be a tremendous challenge. They've beaten us 3 times in a row here, so we haven't had much success with them on our home floor. And then you go to Wingate, which is right up with certainly right up there with Lenoir-Rhyne. Is one of the more difficult venues in the league. Brian's got what should be an excellent team coming back. They have a bunch of, and they lost 2 pros in the post, but they have I think 3 all-league guys coming back in the backcourt, and he's has done a great job with that program. They've been in position to be playing for big stuff almost every year, and so they should be excellent and be up in the top the league as well. So unbelievable stretch coming back from Christmas. We're going to have a great Christmas break. The good thing is hopefully is coming out of that break and understanding what's ahead of us, it gives you a sense of urgency about your preparation and the fact that you really got to tighten up and execute, and your attention to detail's got to be great, because to play and have a chance to win in some of these games against teams that are this good, you got to have an unbelievably strong attention to detail. You got to execute at the highest level, because when you're playing these elite teams in our league with 22 games, it's relentless. If you don't show up and aren't ready to play, you're going to get beat. Doesn't matter which team you're playing. So, we're going to have to be really good coming out of Christmas break to have a chance to have some success in that gap.
Well, and then luckily, again, the way the schedule works out, have that tough road stretch, obviously, UVA-Wise before, then those 2 tough league games on the road. 5 of your next 7 are going to be at home. How important do you think it'll be for your team to go through that stretch unfazed?
Well, I think there's a philosophy which I don't necessarily buy into, that if you win all your home games and split your road games, you're going to win the league, and I don't necessarily view it like that. Obviously, you prefer to play at home, because you're comfortable, you're not traveling, you got your fans, you got all those things. But at the end of the day, you got to be playing well to have a chance to win any of these games, because the competition's so strong, the coaching is so solid, every team's got really good players. When you get a stretch like that, obviously you've got to be playing at a high level so you can have a chance to play well enough. And some of these games, we're at a stage in the league where I think, and there's happened to us before, you can play really well and still get beat because the team just plays better. But that stretch is going to be vital for us, just because at that stage, I know last year that was a huge road stretch for us. It flipped this year, and we were able to play really well in that pocket. And then we finished almost the entire rest of the way at home. This year, obviously, it flips. We got that great stretch there with 5 out of 7 here, and then the back end it flips to where almost most of our games are on the road. So we're going to have to, if we're going to have a chance to compete for anything, we'll have to get through that stage, be playing at a really high level, and be somewhat in contention to have a chance to play for something down the stretch of the season.
And of course, like you said, then 5 of your last 7 are away from Tex Turner Arena, and which maybe there's a part of you maybe like that as a coach to prepare you for playing away from Tex Turner once he gets into postseason play.
There is some. I think if they would let me, I'd play them all here. But Patrick doesn't seem to agree with that, Commissioner Britz. But I do think that you have to go into really difficult venues, and I don't know all the games that are in there, but I do know that we have to go to Newberry in that stretch. I think we do go to Carson Newman in that stretch, and I don't know all the others that we go to, but you're going to have to go in and play really well in tough environments. You're going to have to, at that point, the only thing that's negative about that is at the end of the season is, a lot of times you're more fatigued physically, you're more fatigued mentally. It's nice you don't have to do as much travel. Last year, I think that helped us, that we got through that difficult road stretch. We were probably gassed a little bit, but we had 5 our last 7 at home, plus the first round of the conference tournament, so we played 6 out of 8 at home. And that was really nice for us to kind of catch our breath and have a chance to kind of play through some of that mental and physical fatigue that hits you in February. From our standpoint, now that's going to flip, and we're going to be on the road and having to try to play through that fatigue that comes to every team in February. But, you have to be tough, and you have to go out there and you have to try to gut it out and understand, home or road, it comes down to, which team executes best, longest, and you're going to have to go out and play at a really high level to have a chance to have success, because you're going to be playing really high-level teams on their home court during that phase.
All right, thanks for your time, Coach, and we'll be back with you tomorrow for part 2 of the 2014-15 preview.
Look forward to it.